So we'll have a transportation schedule, alternate transportation schedule, and then I'll share the breakdown of these numbers.
How's like tonight?
Have some time that we could jump into this grant update to cover some of it in the work session.
How are you? How you doing?
Oh, I cannot look at this chair. Is there another chair?
So I'm
I do, I always have this chair.
So I oh no, I've been several
There's the thing. I know, Dora.
Okay. You getting one from the fourth?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Now you get a really delightful.
Thank you very much.
Spent this as much as I'm able to. It could be the most difficult thing you've asked of me.
Oh, this would be so much better.
You'll never leave.
Oh no, we're showing Kelly.
Alright, depends.
Hey.
We are on the struggle bus.
It's all flying out.
I think we're ready to get started with the work session. I'll call it to order.
First item will be transportation, presenting the alternative transportation schedule.
Good evening. Thank you very much for this opportunity to sit there and present this to you. This is Cassie Knight. Cassie Knight is my lead driver. She's in charge of the other two drivers, and she's been instrumental in being able to help develop this along with several other people. And what we wanted to do, this is in case of an emergency. So we pray that we'll never ever have to utilize. In case it does, Cassie's come up and helped many other people come up with a way that we can possibly give us and provide transportation for all of our students over here at the Elkhart schools. Cassie,
Yep.
go ahead.
Good evening. I'm gonna pass off this paper to help you follow along.
Thank you very much.
So, I just use the.
Yes, you can use the clicker or the mouse.
Okay, to start in the morning with our elementary schools, we've chosen Chinewood, Daly, and Oslo to go in approximately 30 to 40 minutes later. This will open up 17 drivers to help with the first tier with our other schools. The first tier buses are going to be allowed to drop at their schools between 7 and 7:10, so that the next tier for those 3 schools can start their routes and get them to school by 7:30. So we're hoping all schools will be dropped, all elementary, by 7:30. And this only affects bus riders. Car riders, walkers will go in at their normal times. For middle school, freshman division in Elkhart High, freshmen will run on a Monday schedule even Tuesday to Friday. This will allow our 7 freshman division only drivers to help with our middle schools and our Elkhart High. Office staff may have to drive for these routes due to it only opening 7 drivers instead of 17. Also, 3 of our middle school buses, 91, 5, and 148, will be able to help with Elkhart High buses after dropping at their middle schools at 8 o'clock. In the afternoon, we will release elementary at 1:30, except for Pinewood, Daly, and Oslo. These buses should be on the road no later than 1:40. This allows students who got to school late to get the same amount of instructional time as those that went in at their normal time. Then the Pinewood, Daly, and Oslo drivers would go back at 2 o'clock and run their routes as normal. And those that helped on the first tier will help with the second if needed. With middle school freshmen and Elkhart High in the afternoon, it gets a lot trickier. So at Northside, bus 91 students would need to be released at 2:50. Pierre Moran, 148, 5, 93, and 53 would also release at 2:50. Then at Elkhart High, 36, 92, 154, 126, 117, 48, and 90, their students would release at 3:05. Be on the road by 3 and 3:15. The routes released early would take them home and then return to freshman or Elkhart High and would take another batch home. They'd be at the tarmac or freshman division at 3:45, 4 o'clock. Specifically, Route 53 would take 93's freshmen home so that 93 can cover a whole route on her own. 6th grade band and orchestra will not go on this alternative schedule due to us needing to release our elementary a half an hour early. Pace and title will go as normal. Our special needs routes will go as normal. We will not be able to do after school shuttle loops, and only bus riders are affected by these changes. Any questions?
For those who may have joined in late, what would trigger the schedule?
This would cover if we had 20 plus drivers off. Currently, we can handle 10 to 15. When we hit 15, we really start to struggle with covering it with office staff and dissolving and combining routes in the morning.
Okay.
How quickly can you dissolve and recombine a route?
Well, I'm out on the bus, so I'm not able to do that. So I rely on Michelle Erzberger, who's a control stop finder. She's been doing it for us since she took over her position. So she's able to dissolve in a matter of minutes. She knows what buses go to which schools and who she needs to call to notify. So we have one particular route I just created, bus 89 at Feezer. We missed covering it the other day. So she had it covered by other Feezer buses in less than 10 minutes and had those drivers called, and the students were already picked up.
We also have our head dispatcher, Clay Powell. He's been with us for quite a long time. He knows exactly each one of these routes and how to split things off and how close the other bus is to one of our routes that might need to be covered, and be able to ask them to jump in and take a small portion that will help alleviate some of the stress on the rest of the drivers as well too. So it's a work in progress. It's poetry in motion at times, but it works.
And we have many drivers also that will just volunteer. They're going to hear we're struggling. They'll hop on the radio and say, hey, I can come and get this group of students. I'm only a few minutes away.
Mhm.
And we rely on that greatly in the mornings.
How do you communicate to parents about alternative routes when they happen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if the afternoon before we see we're already in this circumstance, the moment we know that we're there, we would communicate that, again, preferably the evening before if we can. If there are a lot of calls in the morning, and Tony gives me that call, then we would do it just like we would any other kind of delay, but we would announce that we're on the alternative transportation schedule. School is running as normal, but we're following this schedule.
Does that go on like the news too, like where it would be school delays?
All the places that we would do, yeah, we would just say it's a normal school day other than an alternative transportation schedule.
Okay.
We would make sure our drivers knew one too. They told
Then like the all-call, it would be like that.
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
We call it no later than 5:15, 5:30 at the absolute latest.
John, this question is for you.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
know some of the bus drivers came a while ago saying when they picked up the extra routes, they weren't getting paid or the pay wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't structured right or something. I can't remember the exact wording. So has that issue been resolved? Because for this to work, those drivers have to pick up these extra routes.
They would be able to pick up and we would.
Can you talk into that?
Okay, excuse me. Yes, it has been taken. Anytime we blended a route already, I think are you talking about a previously blended route or are you talking about in this instance itself?
I can't remember all the details, but the one lady came and said she had been here working from like, I don't know, 4 a.m. and right before she came to the board
Gotcha.
meeting. And she said she picked up some routes that wasn't normally on her schedule or something, and
Okay.
that she wasn't getting paid for them.
We will always pay them. If they're underneath that umbrella of when we're paying them anyways, and they can offshoot and go ahead and pick up small, or underneath that umbrella being paid anyways. If it's gonna go past the normal times, we'll be more than happy to reimburse them, absolutely.
So if it's,
But they aren't starting at 4.
well, I'm saying, I can't remember, I might not be saying it right, but if
No,
it's
sorry.
not, like, I know some of them have a break in between, so if it's in that break of time that they're already getting paid, but it's not a route they normally pick up, do they get paid for that?
If during that break time, are they on the clock or off the clock?
I don't know, I'm asking you.
Well, it depends on the amount of break that they have.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's encompassed within it, just a small amount of time. We are going to make sure that they're going to be covered as far as being paid, as long as they're under the umbrella of the pay. If there's 7.2 hours and they're doing these extra small pickups of whatever we need, and it's within that 7.2 hours, they wouldn't get paid any extra. But if it goes past that, if it would go past their normal time, we'll be more than happy to reimburse them. They would do a half sheet that fill out that showed that they were there to help us pick up the extra students. Does that make sense?
I think, and again, I don't remember exactly what she said. I think it's what you said, that they're under that umbrella and they're already getting paid, but they're picking up extra work. And they were saying that they didn't think that was fair. They're doing extra work in that time, but they're not.
I don't think it's fair. I have to do an extra haircut every summer.
Oh, Shelley, I'm just asking.
No.
I'm just asking.
If we pick up 3 people from a stop or pick up 30 people from a stop, we're still utilizing the abilities of our bus to be able to transport those students to the best of our ability. If I'm having a student, as far as having a driver get paid more because they had 15 students compared to 3 students, if it's can be encompassed and it's long within that umbrella, I would think that we should be okay.
Are you saying like if I had a route and you were off sick and I had to take your route because
No.
you weren't there?
I didn't really understand
Yeah.
when that lady came and said it,
Okay.
but I think what she was saying is that with the break or whatever the
Downtime.
spacing is, the downtime, she wouldn't have been doing anything during that time and she's still getting paid.
But she was still,
But she's picking up the extra routes during the downtime, doing extra work, but not getting.
but she was getting paid to not do work. So now she has to get to do
Yeah,
work
that's-
and still get
I'm
paid.
just trying to understand. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I just want to understand what the issue was then, if it's been resolved.
Yeah, they
Because
still,
this doesn't work if people don't want to do the stuff.
Yeah, so if you're getting paid 7.2 hours and like 2 of the hours you're sitting there, you know, because you can't really go anywhere, then if something comes up, then you take the bus route because you're still getting paid for that 2
Correct.
hours that's within the 7.2.
So that's the normal
But if
protocol
you're
then.
over the 7.2 hours, now you're getting paid for that and you fill out a sheet and then you turn that
I think
sheet
it's
in.
not the over, it's the downtime. So if that's the normal protocol, I was trying to understand why they were saying it wasn't fair in the first place. That's what I guess more.
If I can help, we actually had John and I and a number of other people had numerous conversations with the bus driver committee on this very point. And I think the confusion comes into play as to how you define downtime. If it is within the minimum that you're already contracted to work for, we believe we can assign that additional work without additional compensation. And the committee members at that point in time agreed with that. Now, there are times of the day that are outside that minimum, and if we extend a route or ask them to work during that period of time, they would automatically receive their route pay for picking up that additional work at that point in time.
Thank you for the clarification, because it's difficult when people come and say this stuff and then it's live streaming. People don't ever get the clarification, so that's why I was wondering if that issue had been resolved.
I think we've got that resolved with the committee so that, and actually, we will be sending you probably later this week, language that we've worked out with the committee that we'll be bringing to you in a couple of weeks for your review, that will resolve a number of the issues that were outstanding in terms of these questions. One of them also that how the overtime compensation was calculated that we're also in the process of fixing. So I think you'll see a lot of those changes coming forward that should be well received by the drivers.
I think it might be helpful if when you get all that, if you could just do another presentation, because I think more than the board needs to know,
Yes.
because these are issues we always hear about in the community, and it would be helpful that if everybody understood. Because the only thing that people repeat is what people come and complain about, and they never get the full.
Right, and I think frequently people in the community will see buses parked at various locations when people are in between routes. Now, that can still be compensable time that they're getting paid for, and so I think it's helpful for us to be able to communicate to people how our process works.
Absolutely.
Our agreement with the drivers does have minimum times that they're guaranteed pay, which is included in their individual contracts as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Cassie, this is impressive. Thank you.
Yeah, you should commend the department for the hard work that they did to get here.
See the map with all the routes going everywhere. It's
I don't know how.
crazy. I don't know how they do it. It's insane.
Yes,
In regards to the alternative schedule, I see that no after-school sports shuttles will be running. So what communication has occurred with the athletic department, and what resolve did you come to meet that need?
I will contact Larry Kessinger. He's in control of our athletics. There's been times we haven't been able to shuttle before it, and then they'll use the white buses. But they've been trained on the white buses to shuttle them back and forth if need be.
Who will be driving the buses?
I'm not sure who's got their licenses for them, but they're coaches, and I believe Larry himself has a license to drive our white buses. I'd have to check with Trish.
How many?
Well, I just think that will need to be coordinated, because I know last year specifically, I can remember on occasion, there were a number of freshmen that played on the JV and had an away game. And if there wasn't a shuttle to get them from the freshman division back to the high school to catch that bus, the bus couldn't leave. And it delayed, the game. So I just want to make sure that has been thought through and there are plans to.
I will be in contact with Larry to make sure that's taken care of.
Okay, thank you.
How many kids do we are using the shuttle to go back and forth between the buildings for athletics? Do we know?
40 to 50 from Elkhart High to freshmen, and then the same for freshmen to Elkhart High. And they also stop at aquatics too.
Okay.
So, doing some quick math, that's a lot of little shuttle buses. If the shuttle buses
It's
can
one
only.
bus per school with a overflow bus possible if needed, because the amount of students riding daily changes depending on what sports or extra clubs go.
And what's the capacity of the white buses?
14.
14?
we have 4 or 5 white buses that are over there at the freshman division right now that are being utilized as far as for different things. So those are constantly being used, and plus we have other parts of the school corporation that are asking about those white buses, so they would have opportunities to also sit there and shuttle as well too.
So it'll take 2 or 3 of those buses. Okay.
Any other questions?
No, I just have a comment. I thought you were out today, so thank you for coming back to join the board meeting.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Second item for the work session is to look at our enrollment numbers. And so in front of you, there is sorry, was that computer? Sorry. Do your thing first, sorry.
The binder on top of it?
No, it's me on top of it.
Now you're good.
There we go. So in front of you, there is a large spreadsheet on the big 11 by 17 paper, and then there's a smaller color-coded piece of paper. So what has triggered the analysis that you'll be seeing is the colored piece of paper is what our data folks put together as they're running our state counts. Again, in September, we do a state count, and then we do a state count again on February 1st. And so the yellow sheet summarizes what that looked like. So we see there by school, the enrollments officially as of those days, and then what those totals are. And then that's compared against the numbers that we had a year ago in February, and then in the green, the difference between what we have now and what we had on count day back in September. And when you look at that down in the lower right-hand corner in the green, you see that we are down 323 students between count day in September and count day here in February. So that raised the question of what was happening with that. The first number that we really wanted to look at and what we were questioning was what was going on with the high school, because if you look right there above the negative 323, you see a negative 166. And that's the highest that that's been in some time, and it just raised some questions about what was happening. So I had gone in and kind of broken that down a little bit and shared that with Carrie and Frank. And then in doing that, just determined, well, let's look at it district-wide and see what was happening. So that takes us to the larger spreadsheet that you have there. And that's what's up on the screen. So in the upper left-hand corner of that spreadsheet, on the front side, you see the reasons of the code for exit. And so when students withdraw in our student information system, Power School, we have to designate the reason that they're leaving and give them an exit code that corresponds with a code from the state. And so those numbers, 2 through 34 there, align with the descriptor and the state code, so that when every week when we do our RT report, it pulls all of our students and then indicates whether we've had new students enroll or students leave, and for the designated reason. So when we look at that data between the first day of school and the February the 3rd, we have 651 students who have left the district. And the breakdown in there, with the largest movements being because of transferring within state, 373, out-of-state transfers, 120. And then you also see there about 52 between truancy, no-shows, and students who are confirmed missing. If students do not show up and we try to reach out and don't make any contact, we have to send successive registered mail letters to their last known address. And if we get those returned to us after those multiple attempts, then we are able to report them to the Clearinghouse for Missing Children, and then we designate them in here as confirmed missing. So those are some of the biggest reasons, as well as the 65 transferring to homeschool. So that is what it looks like as the district. So if we take all of those reasons and go down the reason code here between that graph and the gray line, then you can see the breakdown by school. So it's those same codes running across, broken down school by school. So you see in Beardsley, there were 26 students that transferred in state, and then the smattering of those other reasons. At Beck, we had 21 students transfer in state and 9 transfer out of state that get us to our 30. And those go all the way across. So again, in the information that I had provided to the high school, I had looked at grades 10, 11, and 12 and had provided that to them, but now look at that more broadly. So the totals running across here that get us to our 651 at the very end, which is on the back of your spreadsheet that you have there as your printout. I did the elementary schools through Pride Academy on the front, and then the secondary buildings are on the back, along with School Without Walls and Student Services. So there are 651 as you go across all of those rows, all those rows. Then what I wanted to find out was, well, we obviously didn't lose 651 students because we have 343 on the ME report. So how many students moved into the district? So Jen Smith did a poll of all of the students who enrolled within the district. And so those are the number of students that enrolled in each of the schools. So those students with an entry date between the fall count and the February count are there. And then the difference is that net loss of students right above the gray line. So as you go across there, you see that those So, here, for example, Cleveland lost 12 but gained 25, so they were a net gain. Those numbers may not exactly correspond with what's in your green column on the sheet just because of timing and when the reports were run and things. So if you see a difference in that net loss or net gain of students between this report and the green column on the colored sheet, that's just an account of when the numbers were pulled and the ranges we were looking at. So it might be a difference of a few students. And that's also why there's a difference between the 323 and the 304. So it's a difference of about 19 students that just happen across all of the 11,000 students in the district because of when the reports were pulled. So then the question becomes, all right, obviously our biggest place where students are determining and leaving is to transfer within state. So then the question becomes, all right, where are those students going when we look at where they're going within state? So when we do the data pull out of Power School, there is a comment section where our buildings really try to put down where those students are going. So below the gray line on your sheet, you will see by building where those students who left by code 19 and were going someplace else, where they went. And in some instances, we don't know. So like under Beck, at the time that people were putting in the information, they weren't exactly sure, or the person might still have decided to go, might be going out of state. So the unknown or the state slash means that people had put information in maybe with a question mark or put unknown because they didn't know where the folks were going. But otherwise, we've been able to determine pretty much where people are going by other school districts or the name of the school there. So here in the instance of Beardsley, for example, we had somebody move to Akron, had a couple people go to Auburn, 4 went to Concord, 1 went to Converse, 1 went to Goshen, a couple moved to Indianapolis schools, 2 went to LaSalle over in South Bend, 1 went to Mishawaka, 4 enrolled in online school, 2 were just other things, and then 6 went to South Bend. So when you total all of those up, then you get the 26 up at the top. So this provides us that. And then as you go across, again, the front page are all the elementary schools and the Pride Academy. And then when you get to the second sheet, that's the 3 middle schools and all of the high school buildings. And that again, all totals up to that 373 that we had up there at the top. Then I went back through and looked at, okay, who are the top receiving or where are the top receiving locations? So when you total up going across there, you see that online, 64 students out of those 373 left us to go to online schooling. 42 went to Concord, 41 went to South Bend, 32 went to the Excel Center. And remember that the Excel Center is the alternative program for students who turn 18, who most likely will not obtain the credits they need by graduation. And so they withdraw from us and enroll in the Excel Center as a way for them to be able to complete in an intensive program and earn their high school diploma. And so those students most likely for us, if they didn't follow that alternative path, some of them have potentially been in school without walls for us. Some might have been in the academy for us. And still, despite those alternative programs we have, they haven't been successful there. So going to the Excel Center allows them to do that. And by withdrawing and going there, they have that shot at getting their diploma, and they do not become dropouts for us because they aren't successful in completing with us. So that's why we have that partnership with the Excel Center to offer kind of that tier 4 option of what can happen to help a student get to graduation. And then you can see there Goshen, Penn, Middlebury, Bago, Mishawaka, and Fort Wayne round out those top 10 locations. So this provides you a sense of where students are going, the high mobility. We know with things happening with the economy that people are moving the out of state. As I looked at it, I mean, people are going all over the place in those out of state locations and even out of the country, Puerto Rico, Mexico as well. So wanted to provide you this snapshot of where all of this was happening and what was going on with those enrollment numbers.
So do we know when they're in effect unenrolling, do we know why?
In some instances we do, and that's my next step is to go back to principals and say, given these numbers, do you have some specifics about some of these people and why you know why they're leaving? Those are not in the comments in Power School, and we were just doing the data finalization on this and signing off on that report yesterday. So I wanted to have this to share with you, but that's my next question for Bill.
Do we know when, so we don't have any process or anything from the fact that the registrar, when they call to get records or to transfer records, to find out when they're signing off, to have the records transferred? Did we have
Many of those instances in the comments, it will say records sent to such and such a place. But if those records are not maybe ever requested, then whatever comment is in there would be our last comment and would have been the last thing we were told about what they wanted to, what they were.
Do we have any historical data that looks at this to see if we have anomalies in certain buildings at certain times? Or I mean, how does this compare, like, with certain buildings? Is this a normal number for like a back or about right, or is this off the charts? Or, you know, from another building that may not have historically
Right.
transfers
It's
this
been
time
hard-
of year?
It's been hard to tell since the pandemic because it's kind of all over the place. Like 2 years ago, there was a big drop at Oslo that nobody was really anticipating, or were like, what was going on there? And they just had fewer kids enrolling that fall.
Could that have been because of a leadership change? That particular building then?
I think it was Chris's second year. I don't know. I mean, I don't. It was after Gary had gone.
Okay.
So, I mean, typically we do see drops at Bristol, and have typically seen that. But the kind of things that we're seeing across here, it's a little higher at Riverview now than kind of other years, but not extremely. But we also redistributed students around as well. So it's kind of a new baseline in that regard too of what's happening because of those students being redistributed.
We can't tell if any have gone, like, I didn't see Trinity, Elkhart Christian, St. Vincent's, and we can't tell about.
They're in the breakdown under code 19. So I think in there somewhere there are a couple. There might be a St. Thomas. There's a St. Vincent under Roosevelt.
I saw St. Vincent's under somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, Roosevelt.
A couple Marians. I think 3 or 4 to private schools maybe across all of that.
Do we have any data for students that transfer outside of the district and yet still maintain their residency within?
We don't,
Boundaries.
when they're leaving to go to another Indiana school, we don't know if that's because they've moved or they're exercising choice. And we don't get that granular data. We get a report in the fall, late fall, of students who are exercising choice just in the aggregate and where they're going, but we don't know who those students are.
Well, and when they pull out, do we give them an opportunity to fill out a sheet? Why? Because when all those parents left Eastwood, they, wanted somebody to reach out to them and ask them why. Like, they weren't asked why they were leaving or anything, and they all went to Evansburg.
And that's why I'm going to ask the building principals for, like, what do you know about these people
6 families.
and what's going on, and then what apparatus do we need?
Okay, a two-part question. I focused in on the high school, including the freshman division, and particularly code 19 transferred in state. And the freshman division had 27, 10th grade had 28. And that didn't surprise me because I would expect if somebody were going to transfer in state, it would be the freshman or sophomore year. And then it goes down to 18, so it decreased in 11th grade, but in the 12th grade it was 40, which initially I was concerned that normally their last year after being in the district, you wouldn't see that type of transferring. But then you discussed the Excel Center was 27 of that 40, which means that number is really 13. So,
And then 6 of the ones that are left went to online.
so I analyzed that correctly?
Yep.
Okay, that was my first question. Then my second question is, of the 27, I'm assuming that they were in our alternative programming during that year. At what point do we make the determination that they're not going to be able to effectively graduate out of our programming and they probably need to go this route? And do we,
And that conversation is happening actually before their senior year. I mean, when you're arriving at your junior year and you only have 8 credits, if you have the ability to do school without walls, or you're doing summer credit recovery, or you're doing mini misters like Krista has shared, and you're still getting, through your junior year and you're not accumulating the credits you need, then the question becomes, what are you going to do during your senior year, and are you going to kick it in and be able to do that? But the conversation about how are you going to get to graduation is happening sooner than just some point at the, in the senior year, because you have to be realistic about how are you and what's the plan for accumulating 40 credits if you're arriving at your junior year with.
and the Excel Center is possibly the last chance?
It is kind of the last resort before potentially considering getting an adult equivalency
Right.
of your GED.
If you go to the Excel Center, that they're no longer affecting our graduation rate.
Right. They withdraw from us. They're a clean
So-
exit code on 19, and they go there and work on their schedule and the way Excel runs it as an adult diploma earning program. And they work through that once they turn 18. They are then enrolled there. They get their diploma from the Excel Center, and they're an Excel graduate.
So we withdraw them, but it doesn't affect the graduation rate.
Right, they withdraw from us to go there. Yep.
How do you get to senior year? How do you get credit?
Don't pass your classes. Don't attend. Yeah. Anything else I can do? My question would be, as we obviously are next week looking at the demographic information with School IQ, is this something that might be helpful to share with the key committee
Yes.
as we
Yes.
look at it?
Yeah.
I was assuming that would be something that we would want to share to kind of round out and give a snapshot of where we are right now as Hazel presents that other information.
Yeah, I think it would also be for the key committee, to see trends
Trend data, I was gonna say.
of the transfer report. I know I track that
Yeah.
myself. and
I have it as well. I don't know what's going to be in the information that comes from Hazel. It may be in there.
It may
And
be,
if it's
yeah.
not, then
And we can create it, I've got,
Yeah.
I've got my book here.
Yeah.
I also think it might be, good to see, to give them information just to see enrollment trends, to see
Mhm.
an enrollment trend, so they know where we, and how we've been.
and again, not having seen what Hazel has, I don't know what will be in that.
Yeah.
But if we need to round that out with some stuff, we can.
Yeah, I just think it's important as we're putting the picture together, for the community to understand why we're doing what we're doing, in the process of right-sizing the district and the challenges we have. We need to make good decisions with the information that we have and plan for the future.
I think the trend information's more than important. I think it's critical to get an understanding of what, they're tasked with.
And in the RFP, we had requested that Hazel provide that trend information. So I just don't know what format it's going to be in or what it looks like.
Well, I think too, it also says, I want to make sure that people understand that this isn't a 3-year, 5-year issue that we've had. This has been going on for almost 20 years. So we've just come to the point that it has to be dealt with now, and that's why we're doing this.
Yep.
Would that additional information also be uploaded to the feasibility part of the website?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll have this as a printout to give to the key committee, and then we'll add it with the materials after that. As we've done in other meetings, I checked with President Davis. We have some time left in the work session to maybe get a head start on one of the presentations that would be happening during the board meeting. So if we're amenable to doing that, we could do
Yes,
that.
that's
So maybe whichever one of you. Yeah, do that.
Good evening.
And this will be covering the first item on the instructional report. So the PLC process update, and then the 2-sided handout are the slides that Tara is going to be going over. This one.
Okay, I'm just here to quickly give you an update on where we're at with some of our PLC work. So this is kind of what we've accomplished so far. So last spring, we worked on the establishment of the essential standards for ELA for all grade levels and subject areas. Went into the summer and early fall, working on unwrapping and identifying learning targets for each standard. And then going into this year, using our e-learning days to pull together grade level and subject area teams to talk about proficiency scales, aligning the learning targets to make sure that we're getting the rigor that we need, that we're going to see on state and standardized assessments, mapping those standards out then across each grade level for each building. And then right now, teachers are working on developing unit plans that have this common information for all buildings and grade levels across the district. So you can see on the next slide, these are kind of the common pieces of the unit plans that we're asking everyone to put into the work they're doing to develop those units around the essential standards. You can look down towards the end there in the bullet points and see that part of that is the content and language objectives that help incorporate those SIOP strategies for our English learners directly into those unit plans, so it kind of ties those two pieces together. So what we're getting ready to embark on is starting to really now look at, now that we have our essential standards established, we have the learning targets, we know what kind of rigor students need to be successful on assessments. We now need to really start looking at our assessments across the district to make sure that those align with all of the work that we've done. So one of the things that Mindy and I have done is we've pulled together some district assessment teams at each grade level for elementary. So the important thing for us in that was, number one, that every building have a voice in that. So we've asked for one teacher from every grade level, for every building to serve on that grade level team, so that we make sure every building and every teacher knows what the work is and has a voice into that. So we'll be doing a lot of back and forth with them.
So that was one teacher from every grade level,
Yeah.
from every building.
Yeah, so basically there will be a first grade team that will have 13 teachers on it, one from every elementary. And we will start those meetings this week, starting with, we're going to kind of group them together to start. So we're going to meet with the K2 teams this week to start looking at kind of the background and why we do assessments and coming together to kind of talk about the goals of those teams. And so here's kind of a bullet point as to what that work's going to look like. So the first meeting, we're going to basically focus on that very first bullet point, understanding the why behind assessments. Why do we give them? What do they need to look like? How can we do them as efficiently as possible? You know, we don't want to add more assessments if we don't have to. We just want to make sure that we have the right assessments to get the data that we need. And so those first meetings are really going to kind of establish that why, look at the goals. And then after that, we are going to start looking at specific item specs for all of the standardized tests to see what the rigor of those items are compared to current assessments we give. So basically, we're going to take item samples from iLearn 3 and from the iLearn test for third grade and say, okay, if this is what a kid is expected to do at the end of third grade, what do our assessments that we're giving here, both from a district perspective and in our classrooms, look like, so that we're getting kids to that point. So for example, if at the end of third grade, if a kid needs to be able to read 2 passages and cite 2 examples from the text of main idea of each of them or character details, we need to make sure that our assessments match that too. So not just the last assessment we give them, but how are we working up to that to make sure that they have the stamina to read 2 passages, the ability to identify those character traits, the ability to juggle 2 separate texts, all of those different kind of learning targets along the way, so that when they get to that assessment, at the end of the year, they know exactly what it's gonna look like and there are not gonna be any surprises for them. So that's gonna be the kind of the second meeting. The third meeting, the kind of last parts of those third meetings are going to be then really looking at, okay, now that we know what kids need to be able to do at the end of that grade level, do we have all of our proficiency scales and learning targets, is that all correct? So we've gone through and done that identification, so that'll just be kind of making sure that we're coming back and doing any tweaking that we need to do, that we've got it all covered. And then the last part is going to be, now that we know all of the things kids need to know, what do our assessments look like here, and how can we make sure that we're doing them efficiently and effectively? So we really want to look at the assessments we're giving and making sure that we're getting the right data from them, but also not overlapping a lot, so that we're not giving multiple assessments that are giving us the same data, and we're just getting them streamlined so we're getting the right information.
I see we look at this at a district level, the assessment criteria and the district assessment plan. Do we ever get a little more granular and go building level?
Yes, so that's what this will do. So once we kind of have that district plan, then buildings will be able to work backwards from that. So if we're saying this is where we get kids, we want to get kids by the end of the year, how can we line up our district and building assessments to make sure we're getting that target at the end? And so our goal will be to create that district assessment plan that provides us with the most effective, informative, and efficient data collection tools to increase student achievement and ensure all students learn at high levels. So that's going to be the goal, is how can we do it as effectively and efficiently and get the right data that we need to inform us to make sure that kids are learning and achieving. So one of the examples that we use is, when we look at assessment, some of our best assessment people in the district are our specials teachers. So if you think about music teachers and art teachers, they are really good at assessment. So, I'm not a music person, so I think I played flute for like 2 years in elementary school. So, but when you walk back to that and look at how specials teachers or a music teacher does assessment, if you are learning to play an instrument, what's the first thing they're going to tell you to do? How do you put it together? How do you assemble the instrument? Where do you hold your hands? How do you play the notes? It's a very progressive look at getting to that end learning target. And most of the time they don't just hand you the instrument case and say, see you at the concert. Like, there's a lot of assessment and correction that goes on during that. So we're really going to have that conversation about trying to think more of of assessment of how are we stopping and doing those checkpoints along the way, so that when kids get to the concert at the end, they know what they're getting into and what they need to know. And then the last part is just really having them think about planning like a coach or a doctor. So when we talk about an assessment plan, we want to make sure that we have all of the tests and all of the skills that they're going to need to know covered in the plan. So going into a school year with a teacher and a student knowing exactly what assessments they're going to have, what they need to do to get there, what the rigor of those assessments look like, I think is really going to be beneficial in instruction. It's going to drive intervention. It's going to help us with enrichment opportunities for kids. So I think having that clear plan will really provide the structure and get us the information that we need. And then there's some resources that we're going to talk with them about, but that's where we're going to get started. So we will start those meetings with them this week on Thursday with our K2, and we'll keep you posted on how that goes. But we're excited about the information I think we're going to get from that.
So the timetable's to finish is before the end of the school year?
Before the beginning of next school year, yes. So we may have some work to do this summer. So kind of once we get through, we have 3 meetings with each grade level team scheduled between now and the end of the school year. So between now and then, we're gonna see where we're at kind of at the end of April, and then really assess maybe what work needs to be done over the summer to get us ready to roll into the next school year.
I have a question, Mindy, you might have to help with this. So I was looking back at the report you gave last month for it, and one of the things that you had said in here was, while we saw increases in certain areas, they weren't high enough. So what's the target? What's the target where we're at? And as you're doing these meetings, for example, I was looking at, like, I think it was fifth grade. And fifth grade, yeah, that was one of the lower ones. So when you're going through and doing this, and you're seeing from the mid-year, so what is changing with what you're doing with this stuff now to help make sure that they have, we're focusing on those areas that they were really low in, or we really lost a lot of ground in? How is that tying in to help the kids for this year, to get to the end of the year and be successful at the end of the year with their assessments
For this year?
for this year?
Okay. I didn't want to go ahead now. Okay.
Did that make any sense?
It does make
Okay.
sense, and I think it's an excellent question. So, with our principal group, this is an ongoing discussion. And so at our last principals meeting, and it really ties in with this work, it's really the same work. So we've gone and dug really deeply into those sample items. When you go to the iLearn site, you can pull off sample iLearn blueprints and questions. Then we went into our NWEA and we found a sample test bank there. We can go into math fluency and we can pull out those sample test banks. We go into our stats, we can pull out those sample questions. So when you pull all of that out, so let's take fifth grade for example, RL 2.3, let's say, which we know is going to be a standard that will be covered on iLearn because they give us that blueprint. So we know, like, this is one that's going to be covered. So when you pull out all of those test items and you lay them all next to each other and you put those in front of principals and teachers, and then you say, okay, let's think about, or let's take a look at your assessment. How does your assessment compare to these? And that's where the conversation is, so that teachers then can make adjustments in those. So you say, okay, first of all, are you using grade level text? Because when you look at the test items and you see the length of the test, the passages, like Tara was saying, sometimes you have to read 2 texts. Do your items look like and align with this? And if not, then you need to make some adjustments there. And as a team, go back into your materials and look at your text. Are you using your MyView resource? Are you using that as your main text? Because teachers have the resources. So that's kind of the work with the principals and with the teachers. And I think by pulling these groups together, we are trying to go more granular to get to those teacher groups. Let us have that conversation so we can look at the CFAs. We're putting together a document where they will drop their actual CFAs into, which then will allow us at the district to really hone in on. So for fifth grade, looking at all of those standards to hone in on, okay, here are 3 standards that we know we really need to work on. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
We will adjourn until 7 o'clock and then we'll start the regular board meeting.
Good pleasure.
I'm gonna call the board meeting to order. If you guys want to stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for spending your Valentine's Day evening with us. We appreciate it. If you guys want to have an opportunity to speak at the end of the meeting, you can fill out the form in the back of the paper doors holding up, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. I just want to remind everybody to keep your comments to 3 minutes. I don't want to have to cut anybody off, but I will if I have to. And make sure that we want to make sure we're protecting the safety and privacy of our students. So please do not say any names or talk about any specific incidents. If there is something you need to talk about, we do have district leadership that you can talk to privately. So please respect those rules because I don't want to have to cut anybody off. We're going to have the Elkhart Promise by Doug Weaver.
The Elkhart Promise. Every student is known by name, challenged, and supported by highly effective staff and in partnership with the community. Will graduate career, college ready, and life ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. We are going to have a moment of pride by Kids Care.
Good evening. I'm Dustin Newcomer, Area Director for Kids Care, which is the division of the Boys and Girls Club of Elkhart County. Here tonight to talk a little bit about our partnership, what we do, how we do it, and how we might expand that kind of in the future. So we took over the before and after school program in 2015. So we've been doing this for about 8 years now, kind of filling that need for the latchkey program before and after school. So we'll kind of get started here with a little video from Eastwood of some of our kids, what they enjoy about Kids Care, and then what some of our parents do.
Really nice to be able to drop them off on my way to work so that I know that they're someplace safe and I don't have to worry about them being in the dark. It really is an affordable option because daycare is so expensive.
Well, I look forward to hanging with my friends.
Playing with my friends and also coloring. They're really nice and they help me out if I need help.
We'll talk now a little bit about how our mission aligns with the Elkhart Promise. So Elkhart Promise is know every child by name to make them feel supported and graduate, career, and life ready. And so we really work, I challenge my staff to build relationships with every child, to know everybody by name, know their grandparents, parents, whoever's coming in to pick them up, and really kind of build that relationship from when they start with us in kindergarten through 6th grade. So that's really a key for us. And we do that by having small staff to child ratios. So we have about 1 staff member to 20 kids at our sites, and really try to stick to that the best we can. I know everybody's kind of going through a staffing crisis in our county, so that's been a challenge for us, but we've really done a good job of sticking to that, which has helped build those relationships and kind of building the program up. So, and then supporting teachers, that's a key for us. We have dedicated homework time, trying to do a little bit of academic enrichment, supporting them, and the administrators in each of the buildings that we're in. So always a key for us to try to support that whole child approach from when they get to us in the mornings until school and then to us after school. So that's a key for us as well. And then successful habits. So I think this is one of the keys I like to kind of pinpoint is making the right choice, encouraging our kids to build some of those social skills, some of the stuff that we really lost over the last few years of the pandemic. So that's kind of a really big focus point for us to move forward. Here's some highlights of our program. We do before school and after school for grades K through 6. We are in 4 different hub locations in Elkhart Community Schools. So we are at Pinewood, Eastwood, Mary Feaser, and Riverview. John and his team of transportation help transport from all the different elementary schools to those sites. So we do serve all 13 of the elementary schools in Elkhart Community Schools. So parent might drop off at Eastwood in the morning, but their child goes to Bristol, then John and his team will help transport with their current routes to that school so they can get to school and mom and dad can get to work. So it's a challenge certainly at the beginning of the year when we start putting some of that stuff together, but it always kind of comes together too. So and we open early, so we are kind of some early risers, 5:30 a.m. in the morning. We have a lot of people that are there at 5:30 trying to get in the program, drop off, get to work by 6, and then after school until 5:30. So another key that we like to highlight is our affordability. You heard it in the video. If parents have their kids attend just morning or after school, it's only $55 per week. For both, it's $75. Those prices have really only changed, about $10 in the last 3 or 4 years. So I'm pretty proud of being able to keep that low. We hear all the time from parents that might be paying double, triple that at other organizations and communities. So it's affordable, it's safe, it's convenient. So really like to highlight that as well. And then our numbers for Elkhart Community Schools, we have 216 currently in the program, 38 on a wait list still, so that's because of staffing. Trying to get some more staff on board to kind of limit those wait lists. That was quite a bit higher at community schools, so that's a lot lower. General overview throughout the county, we have about 700 in the program, so Elkhart takes up a pretty big chunk of our membership with kids here. And then we also have a mental health specialist on staff. So this is kind of a huge key for us that we just brought on here in January, working with the schools, counselors, families, Oaklawn, Partnership for Children, many different organizations to really try and work on mental health with our kids and trying to kind of correct some of those behaviors that we're seeing at an early age to help as they get into middle school and junior high and into high school. So. And then safe space for kids after school. So dedicated homework and reading time, like I talked about. We do some tutoring at some of our different locations as well, working on some STEM stuff and doing some different grant-related programs that are education-based to really enhance the program for our members. Gym or outside play, so I can get our kids active. Whenever we have access to the gym and whenever we like to use it, we often have to share that with different sports going on, but we're pretty good about being flexible with our different schools and using it when we're able to. So that's a key for us too. Arts and crafts, highlighting some of the creativity of our kids in the individuality, really trying to give them a space to be able to do that. We have a lot of kids that are interested in that, so that's a key for us. And then just the social time, the free time, the games and activities. I just think it's really cool. We have kids that might be at different elementary schools, but come together at Kids Care and build those relationships. It's a really neat thing to see. So, and then how do we continue to partner? So working on getting curriculum maps, how we can maybe possibly mirror that in our programming as well to help support our forward buildings and then the extension schools, principals, teachers. What can we do to help mirror what they're doing in the classroom and kind of speaking the same language and support too. So, and then providing that support, those kind of go hand in hand. Always here to help support when things change or maybe the course of the school year changes as well. We like to be able to kind of adapt and kind of mirror what schools are doing in that regard. And then involving us in school training. So we've been involved in some different safety trainings, making sure we're speaking the same language I think is important. A lot of times, 5:30 in the morning, we might be the only ones in the building until the students show up at 6 o'clock. So trying to make sure we know exactly what's going on is important. Same kind of thing after school. So any trainings like that we're involved in, I think is important. And then community events, we'll be at the ECS Parent Coalition event next Thursday. So getting involved with more of those events is important to continue to kind of raise awareness for what we do and kind of building our brand throughout our community. So in closing, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight about Kids Care. I appreciate Steve and your support of your team. It's been great working with John in transportation, Pam in food services that provide dinners to our kids, and all the administrators in the building. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next we have the consent items. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Okay, I'm gonna do this. Okay, so the robotics team, the Elkhart robotics team received $500 from Warride, $500 from MSC, and $750 from PE Robbins 2. The ETI received their $37,500 from Thor. We had lunch donations of $500, $200, $100 that went to various schools. The NHS received $500 from ARC America. And then the job fair received $52 from Buff Soap. They received 4 coolers, a speaker, 2 desk chairs, 1 gaming chair, a paper shredder from Feed the Children, $100 from Meridian Title. They received a television, a theater seat, and job from Lippert. We have the automotive class. This is great. $1,500 from David Yoder from the Mustang Club. 1 student from 5 automotive classes will receive a toolbox that they will use to continue their trade after graduation. We have the Mean Girl Theater Show received $500 from First State, $1,000 from Innova, $250 from Mary Hubbard, $1,000 from Brent and Amanda Jameson, and $400 from Natural Health Family from the Lynn Homes. This is another wonderful one. $3,000 from Jenny and Mike Nolan for a sideline scout system to help our divers continue their career. So that is everything that we received.
Thank you, Kim.
Well
Is-
done.
Amazing. Thank you very much.
Is there any other
Thank you,
discussion?
Dorland.
Is there any other discussion from the board? Is there any questions or comments from the audience? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, who's finishing up the instructional report?
And this is the stapled series of slides that were with your outline.
All right. I would like to give you an overview of the Attract, Prepare, Retain grant that Elkhart Community Schools, received in October. I know at that time, we have some new board members, so just to give you an overview of the grant, this was through the state of Indiana, and this comes right from the grant language. The grant priorities to elevate the mission and value of Indiana's K-12 educators, to recruit Indiana's best and brightest for our classrooms, to improve access to professional development and leadership development, to improve our process for recruiting, mentoring, and educating our rising scholars, to create networks with our community partners, increase the number of our high school students entering the teaching profession, and increase our underrepresented populations amongst candidates enrolling in teacher education programs. So that is the overall scope of the grant priorities. Our grant award was $631,000, excuse me. That's a big number.
Wow.
All right, so the 4 focus areas of our grant include expanding our current mentor-mentee program, so I'm very excited to tell you about that tonight. Partnering with local colleges and universities to create a Bridge into Teaching program, which would encourage non-certified employees that are already employed in the district to seek out their teaching licensure. Expand our health and wellness program for our current teachers to provide support to them specifically in the areas of mental health, stress, and burnout. And finally, to create additional opportunities for our high school students to explore the field of education. We currently have programming in the Elkhart Career Center. I really focused on, and we'll talk later in the presentation, about getting additional students within Elkhart High School to be involved in some pretty exciting things. Okay, so I'm going to start with our mentor-mentee program. Currently, we have approximately 60 mentors and 60 mentees, new teachers participating in our program. Of course, that number is fluid because we have teachers that are coming and going. So approximately, we have in total 120 participants. We have invited all of our student teachers to participate. We currently have a total of 7 student teachers, and 3 of them are actively participating in our program alongside their supervising teacher. And our focus really with our student teachers is to welcome them and recruit them because we want them to stay in Elkhart and help them to network and or gain that support early on. Okay, why am I having trouble with, maybe if I try this a different way. Okay, so how do we support our new teachers? We welcome all of our new teachers in the fall to attend our new teacher orientation. That is a 3-day orientation. I went ahead and inserted the slides in there for you, and I think all of you should also have an electronic version so you can get in to see those slides. But during those 3 days, we really try to, we roll out the red carpet for our new teachers. We feed them really well. We take them on a tour of the city. We visit just local important places to the city. Some of our city leaders come and talk to our new teachers, and then they receive presentations from all of our internal folks and just really learn about Elkhart Community Schools. So that's our big kickoff. After that, we provide monthly mentor-mentee meetings to check in with our mentors and our new teachers, and we really have tried to make those sessions relevant and meaningful to the new teachers. So we don't want them to just come after a long day and sit and get information that would not be meaningful to them. So how do we do that? Based on some feedback that we received last year from teachers that had been in our program, they requested that we create a check-in for them. So we know that most of the mentoring work outside of our monthly meetings really happens on a day-to-day basis between the relationship between the mentor and the mentee. That's where the support really comes as new teachers are doing their day-to-day work. So as a way to check in, we have created a monthly check-in form. It's really easy and simple. We didn't want to give them another big task to do, but basically we ask them their names and we provide them with some topics of just discussion points of things that maybe they could think to provide their mentee with some support on during those conversations and just topics for discussion. So this is a check-in for us. They fill this out every month. It's really quick because all they have to do is checkbox it. And then we ask them, what topics would you like us to cover in a future mentor-mentee meeting? Once these come in, that's how Dr. Shepard and we review them and then kind of talk about, we're getting a lot of feedback on classroom management. That's a really popular one. Or we're getting a lot of feedback on how do we support students that have IEPs. So once we get those topics, then we go to put together our next month's meeting based on those topics, and we have had wide-ranging topics for the classroom management. We actually had teachers submit scenarios that they were currently experiencing, and we put those up and we called in a panel of our behavior experts and just provided feedback on that. Had some of our expert teachers provide feedback on that, and it was very successful. So that's another way that we check in. And then we have created a new teacher support site, which is a website for all of our new teachers and their mentors. And this is introduced to them at our new teacher orientation. I always tell them bookmark the site today so that you have it and you can find it. Here we all are. This was at Wellfield at our new teacher orientation. And then we have tabs for everybody here. So if I'm elementary, I can click on that and I can go in. These are all of the slides from our meetings. Here's our check-in forms. So if somebody misses a meeting or if they're not regularly attending, they can at least have access to the resources there. Okay, so how is this grant supporting the program? So in the past, we currently have paid in the past $600 per year for a mentor to serve in the role. And if they only did it for a semester, it was $300. So within this grant, we are doubling that amount, which will be in the next slide. So we are increasing that mentor stipend. We are also incentivizing our mentors to attend the meetings to increase participation. Attendance has been a challenge for us because teachers are not required to attend. And so we have struggled a little bit with participations. The idea was if we can offer an incentive for teachers to attend, then that may increase our attendance. And we have seen better numbers with our attendance. We are also engaging with a community partner, Dr. Elisa Zvier-Drayelli. She is a professor at Goshen College and the director of Teach Elkhart County. She has worked closely with us. she has a mentoring program that she runs at Goshen. So we have joined forces to kind of help support each other's programs and to share ideas. And that's been really, really good for us. So here is the breakdown of the funds proposed in the grant. So the total estimated cost for the stipends, for the attendance at the meetings, for some other things, there's a breakdown of the budget here. It just breaks it down by item. I won't go too deeply at this. Some of it's self-explanatory. For our new teacher orientation, we want to invite our mentors to attend that alongside their mentees. So we would pay them $50 to come to that, and so on. So you can kind of see here, here's the, for attending all of the meetings with us, it's another $500. And then at the time that this grant was written, it was based on our previous number of mentors, which was 71. So now we're about to 60. And anticipated number of student teachers was 10, and so on. So that's how we get to that dollar amount. In terms of sustainability, when the grant runs out, we will of course have a discussion to see, you know, was this effective? Did our mentor-mentee program help us to retain teachers in the district? Did we get student teachers out of having them participate? Should we look into perhaps looking at added pay? Can we go to the table and say, we know that we have some added pay stipends that maybe we're not using anymore, could we replace it with that? So I think at the end of the grant, we would just take a look at this to see how effective it is and see if we could reallocate some funds at some point.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
When you look at the attendance, have you inquired why people are not attending? There may be other reasons other than the stipend.
Yeah, I think one is, I think people are overwhelmed and they're busy, and we hear that a lot from teachers. You know, it's another thing I have to do or another thing, and childcare is that we get emails. Oftentimes our mentors or our mentees will send us an email and say, I'm sorry, I can't attend because I have a childcare issue, and these are held after school. And so that has come to our attention. Of just other obligations that people have, doctor's appointments, things like that. We have teachers that are coaches and run extracurricular clubs and activities, and so that takes precedence over this. Those are some that just come to mind off the top of my head. We have had mentors at times suggest to us that they would really like more support in knowing how to increase their knowledge in training them, not training, but supporting their mentees. So first year teachers that are just struggling. We've had some mentors say, I would really like some more help in knowing how to support them. So we have not done this yet, but one of our goals would be to think about in the future, providing some help and support to them. We are suggesting maybe having a 4-hour session completed within the first 4 weeks of school to help support our mentors in that area. We've also talked about extending our mentor-mentee program from 1 to 3 years. We have, at this point, only had our new teachers come in year 1, but we know that we are losing teachers in the first 5 years. And so would it be helpful to expand it to 3 years? So those are future goals that this grant could provide for us. The second focus area of the grant is our Bridge to Teaching program. We have many partnerships with local colleges and universities, and I've listed some of them there. We have student teachers that are here with us or have been in the past from those universities. And each university has their own unique offering in terms of courses and programs, transition to teaching programs. And so as we think about some of our own employees, maybe there are paraprofessionals or bus drivers or folks that work in food service that may want to be a teacher, that have thought about being a teacher, and may want to seek a teaching license. We have come up with this idea of this Bridge to Teaching program that could perhaps get them a teaching license. So how would the grant support this goal? So in the grant, we are asking for the approval to hire a grant coordinator who would be solely responsible for focusing on this particular part of the grant and overall teacher recruitment to our district. We would like to have a person who could identify candidates who would be suitable for Bridge to Teaching and develop relationships with each of our college and university partners to understand what their programs offer and then oversee candidates. So this has to be someone that doesn't just connect the dots and give the information, but I see this as a person who, if we can identify folks, and our goal is, could we identify 10 people? If we could get 10 people in this type of a program, this person would follow those 10. So I don't see it as like just getting them into a program, but checking in, how is it going? What support do you need? That sort of thing. And then at the same time, this person would serve the role of a district recruiter who could solely focus on bringing teachers to the district in other ways. And I know Maggie's going to talk about that in just a moment. So we've attached the job description here. Open it up. So the full job description is in the presentation. The grant coordinator would be accountable to both myself and to Maggie. It would be a shared position or shared accountability, one for oversight of this grant and then to Maggie for the recruitment part. We proposed the salary of $68,600 there, and that was determined by using the average salary. I had Kevin Scott help me with this calculation, so we came up with the average teacher salary, and then we added 7.15% for the Social Security, VIPA, and teacher retirement. We do not have anybody in mind for this. We would post the position and we would interview candidates. And I'm going to have Maggie come up and talk a little bit about this part. After the grant would end, what would be the sustainability plan? And I'll have her come up with that.
Mindy, I have another question for
sure.
you before you switch. When you are back to the attendance, have you looked at changing maybe the framework of the program so that maybe it's not group meetings, maybe it's one-on-one, or using some of the grant money to kind of buffer some of the reasons that people don't come, like providing childcare or other things like that?
I am open to all of those suggestions. We've just run the meetings, but I think if we had more, I think if we had a position like this, it would help. We would have someone to perhaps who could be more available to do one-on-one, because Dr. Shepard and I are currently running those monthly meetings, and with our schedules.
No, I mean the mentor and mentees. Being one-on-one and not having a group, because that may be increase the participation. If Kelly was my mentor, we can figure out a time to meet and not try to work everybody's schedule into that block of time.
Okay,
So I'm saying changing
I'm
the,
sorry, I misunderstood.
yeah, just changing kind of the structure of how the
We
program.
actually do expect that they do meet one-on-one at various times throughout the month. That's what the stipend has been for. And you saw the check sheet we have there. That's the list of things they talk about when they have their one-to-one meetings. So we are already expecting that is taking place. And we actually believe that is the stronger part of the whole mentor-mentee program, is when they are meeting together one-on-one, and then our monthly meetings are just a bonus on top of that.
Would you do that during like their, after school time, that they're already expected to be there doing their PLCs or their different work practices, so it's not like in addition, like time that they're already, their work time, so that it's not taken into it?
Well, it is a stipend, so, that would be outside of their work time usually. But they find creative ways to get together.
I would think, yeah. If you chose to be a mentor, I would think you would.
How do you choose the mentors?
That's a great question. So we really wanted to make sure that in the selection process, it wasn't just the principal selected somebody. It wasn't somebody that wasn't invested. So Dr. Shepard and I rewrote the entire kind of like job description or expectations of a mentor that lay out all of the expectations. We want you to really be invested in this. We want to make sure that you're meeting with your mentee regularly. We want to make sure that you approach that person with care, that you want to develop a relationship. It can't be just every now and again, hey, how you doing, and that's it. That you seek out your mentee to make sure that they're doing okay. So we have a whole list of expectations to be a mentor. And then on there, we also have, we expect you to attend monthly mentor meetings. This is when they're held. There's a total of 8 meetings, which we think is pretty reasonable for the course of, for the course of a year. We send that application out to building principals, and we ask them then to share that with their staff, and then send us the names of the people who are interested in being a mentor. They then fill out the application. On there, there's a place where you actually have to write, like, respond in writing, why do I want to serve in this role? Then it comes back to Dr. Shepherd and I. We now are to the point, because we've been doing it for 3 years, that we are seeing a lot of the same folks that like to mentor. They're really invested in it. And so then we approve that, and then the process begins. We occasionally have a mismatch where it doesn't work out, or we occasionally have it just, for whatever reason, the relationship isn't working. And when that comes to our attention, we can reassign, we can make adjustments there, because we still want to give that person support. So we can make those adjustments. We don't get that very often, but that does happen.
So I guess more of the reason why I'm asking is because you said some people, the mentors, want to know how they can better support, like they need training. So on the application or during the process, is it something about their competencies or capabilities or experience to, I don't want to say qualify them, to make them more equipped to be a mentor, and then have them matched based on their skill set and experience to what maybe the mentee is struggling with?
I think on our application, we have 3 to 5 years of experience as a classroom teacher, and there are some other descriptions on there. Let me send the application to you, because those are really good questions, and I want to review it, more thoroughly. I haven't looked at it for a while, but I know that we have very specific requirements on there of what we're looking for. And then depending on the principal, because they know their teachers very well, we explain that expectation to them. So we're depending on them as well to give us good references.
So then how do you match the mentor and the mentee together? Is it just random, or?
Okay. So if we have a 9th grade teacher that's new at the freshman division in English language arts, we would try to find a 9th grade English teacher within that same school so that they can work together.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, thank you. Go to the previous screen, Jake. One of the questions was, what is going to happen with the position once the grant ends? And the grant is approved through 2024. And based on the different responsibilities and expectations that we are hoping for the person to perform in this role, should the person in that role be successful in building those relationships, because this is going to be really relational based as we're working with the different universities, with our staff, trying to ascertain what current support staff is interested in becoming teachers. Those require those relationship buildings. And should that be successful, we want to continue that, because that is our pipeline for our teaching staff. That at that point, HR could absorb that position. Now, right now, we've been working together, Dr. Higginson and I, in some of those tenets for the grant. But given the responsibilities, it really makes it challenging for both of us to really focus and devote all the attention that this particular grant needs. So although she and I have been tag teaming on this, without Dr. Higginson having a secretary has made it challenging to really fully execute the tenets in that grant. We recently hired somebody that will be able to provide Dr. Higginson some clerical support, that will be able to provide some of those supports as well. But in essence, in order to have this position or the tenants in this plan be successful, we need someone to fully devote their attention into investing in our staff and building those relationships with the universities. So we would need somebody to help with those. Now, thank you, Jake. Not that one, prior to that, Jake.
For that?
Yes. One more, please. Thank you. No, forward. One more forward. Thank you. All right.
So in regards to the continued loss of students, and does it make sense to add a position now? I can understand how it can be hesitant to add more positions to the district. If the person in this role is successful in building those relationships, we obviously want to maintain those relationships. We would not be adding another allotment to the Human Resources Department. We would then be reallocating one of the current positions that we have not been able to fill. And part of the responsibilities for that position was to build those relationships and also with our substitute teachers. So that will go along the lines with also providing some of the professional development, building relations with the universities and with our staff. So should the person be a successful candidate and be able to fill those responsibilities, that will be how the HR department will be able to absorb that position without creating another position in the district. Now, should it not be a good fit, then we wouldn't be obligated to continue with that role, because the way that the position will be posted would be based on the grant obviously being available, and it will be full disclosure knowing that the position is federally funded, that obviously the position will be available as long as the funds are available as well.
So what does this person do once the grant ends? So if the grant ends and we don't have the ability to do these programs, but we're going to move the person into HR, what do they do then?
Well, if the person is successful and
if you're absorbing the position after the grant ends into HR, then what is that person's role? Because the grant ends, and so, are we going to be able to do programs that the grant's covering?
Right.
If we can't do that, so then what?
Absolutely. So currently the way that the position description is written, one of the primary focuses would be to manage the grant. So there's that fiscal responsibility. The other piece will be the recruitment piece, which is connecting with the universities and also identifying staff within our current district. Once the position ends, the fiscal responsibility piece will no longer be available because the grant has exhausted, but the recruiting piece is still a very important piece of that we still need to continue to build those relationships and engage with our student teachers and the universities, also match the students that we currently have in our district interested in going into the teaching profession, also building those relations and carrying them through those choices. So the person would be serving as the role as that recruiting piece. And that would be the piece that the person would be responsible for if absorbed by the Human Resources Department. Mm-hmm.
Do you have a substitute teacher coordinator right now?
We don't. We did post for the position, and we did not get the right candidate for that position. And currently, there is a bit of capacity within my department that we have reallocated some of the responsibilities, simply because we want to make sure that we have the right person in place. So we did not hire somebody for that role.
So are you saying that's how you can absorb it by not
Correct.
filling that position and kind
Correct.
of combining?
Because some of those responsibilities will align with what the recruiter grant coordinator will be responsible for.
So until would this person really have enough to do for 40 hours a week?
With the grant coordinating and recruiting, I do believe so, simply because they will be assessing the staffing needs that we have, sending out surveys to staff in regards to who's interested in the student teaching, that program for our paraprofessionals, because we are looking at paraprofessionals who currently have a bachelor's degree, that we can help with that transition to teaching, that the person that's managing the grant will then connect that person to a specific university based on that individual's education goals. So there'll be plenty of opportunities for the person to fill an 8-hour day.
Okay, so the grant is just for 10 candidates then? So
That's our goal.
Okay, so goal, and those are people who already have a college degree.
Yes.
To get some, okay, so it says bridge to teaching program. So is that the same thing as the transition to teaching program, or is this a little?
It's similar. The difference would be that with this particular program, we have had staff that have expressed interest in going into teaching that do have a bachelor's degree, but it has been cost restrictive to where they're not able to not work and go to school. So with this grant, if we're able to identify at least 10 of those individuals then through the grant, we would be able to pay for that program. It would be some agreement that they would then make a commitment to the district, but that is how the grant would be paid, and it would be the version of the transition to teaching program.
Okay, so we're paying for them to go get their teaching degree.
Correct.
So then this person is really almost acting as kind of a guidance counselor for these potential 10 people to help them as they're going through this process?
That's part of it, yes. And part of the presentation will also see that we're also looking at our current students that are within our district that are in programs such as the Career Center or at the high school that are also looking into the education field. So we also have plans for that group, and this particular person will also coordinate some of those efforts.
Okay, so on the next slide, the total estimated cost is there, roughly $167,000. And then the budget breakdown. And basically this was configured to look at just what the cost was per credit hour for folks that are local to us, and then come up with an average cost and figure out how much for, at least for elementary, it's 18 credit hours, and for secondary, it's 24. And so then to figure out what the total cost would be. And so that's the total cost here to pay for 10 individuals to go through if we were to get the 10. The next.
So we don't have any, we haven't started this yet?
I think Maggie has some names of folks that would be interested in this.
Okay, so I'm just figuring out from a timing standpoint. So if the grant only goes until the end of 2024, and we don't have anybody in it yet, and they've got to take 18 credit hours, so I'm guessing they probably wouldn't do that all in one semester. Mm-hmm. So are we starting this in the summer? Are we starting it in the fall of 2023? So they'll have a year to get this done?
I think if we can start this summer, when we connect with the universities, I know that many of them have, it depends on their programming and when they could get people started. So I think as soon as we can get this approved and get moving, then we can get those folks identified and get them connected.
Right, but I'm just concerned because the grant only goes until the end of 2024. And so, and the number of credits and stuff you have to have, 18 or 18 for elementary and 24 for secondary, does that even give them time to do this within the confines of the grant?
Cindy, can I help with this a little bit, actually?
Sure.
And only because we run this program in special education, just to answer that. So we've done it for 5 years, 6 years. We might be on the 6th year, or not me anymore, because I don't work in special ed anymore. But we have done this where we hire 10 people with bachelor's degrees in anything. We put them through a program at IUSB. I am one of the professors for that program. We work very closely with the the education department at IUSB, and if are the graduate students, they take 6 credit hours a semester. So they take 2 classes a semester, and so like the special education certification track, right? I think it's 24, but they are 4 full semesters, including the summer. So they would be done if they were to start even this fall on an 18-hour credit track. It would be 6 hours in the fall of 2023, 6 hours in the fall of the spring of 2024, 6 hours in the summer, or 6 hours in the following fall. Does that make sense? That would be 18, I think, if I have that right.
I didn't get a question.
How many have we retained?
The president and
Before he answers that, it sounds like because of your involvement, teaching in it, working very closely with that USB, we have more control and some input into how that program is supposed to work, as opposed to this program, which is dealing with a number of different universities and basically their program and scheduling.
Right, but it's, I mean, the structure's there. It's a process that we've already done that we can duplicate with other universities, and other universities are very eager to reach out and work with us and work with our HR department and work with Mindy to duplicate this program. So I don't think I actually think it's excellent, and I'm really, for how well it's worked for special education, I'm very excited to have the opportunity to bring in elementary and secondary teachers on this route. Because the truth is, we just don't have the number of people going into education that we had previously.
Right now, we have the state director of special education asking other directors around the state to contact me to talk about what we did, because they're really hurting for teachers. So, you know, the great work that our staff members have done in providing that, we're seeing about, I would say, 4 out of 5 folks staying, right? Those who don't stay are required then to pay back the tuition at a rate of the amount of time they stayed to make up for. And that's that's part of the signed agreement going in. So to be honest with you, without this program, we would not have enough special education teachers right now to take care of the students we have. So running a cohort of 10, you know, you do the calculation, the 6th year, it's about 60. Well, it's really more about 45, because through attrition, some folks realize, hey, maybe this isn't for me, or hey, maybe I would like to actually do something more. And so they get into special education and realize maybe there's something else I'd like to do. We've also learned over the last couple of years how to do some things a little bit differently to make sure to work with. I think the mentor-mentee piece becomes so important, because what we realized as those folks went through, there's a real advantage to having our own staff members helping with some of that. But the other piece that we realized is we are really supporting education through IOS and other local universities. We're having less and less folks really wanting to go into education. And so this is an opportunity for us to put forward and be able to actually supply local folks, because most of the folks that will go through this are folks we already have relationships with. So when they get into the program, they want to stay with us because they're already with us. They either have kids here or they're working in our schools in another capacity that doesn't require a teaching license. And so that allows us then to continue to retain really good Elkhart people as we continue to process through. Many folks can't continue the education because it's so expensive. So pieces like this with the grant, where we can pay for them to stay and they have an agreement to stay, are really beneficial to us to retain people down the line, because they're already rooted here. They're not moving here. They're our own people. So there is a real advantage, and has been, in special education.
Yeah, I think one of my biggest concerns with this piece of it is there enough time for them to do the program and get the degree with the timetable of the grant?
So and I might defer to Maggie a little bit on this, on the way that Indiana has changed the way that we can do alternative to teaching licenses. It's like a 3-year license.
Mm-hmm.
So they would be able to have 3 years to complete a program, but we could pay, and the way that grants are, like, it might end in 2024, but then I don't even know, I'm gonna use words that I'm making up in my head. Encumbered, is that a grant word?
It depends on when the encumberment is and when it can be paid out. So, yeah.
I think, and I may be wrong, but I thought when I read that it had to be encumbered by September of 2024, everything submitted by December of 2024. So that's why I'm kind of.
How long have we had the grant? Like, how long have we had this grant?
October.
And most universities run on fall cycles. So regardless of how quickly we would be able to get people into this, we wouldn't be able to start them until fall of 2023.
Can somebody share what encumbered means in case somebody in here doesn't know?
Somebody else want to share what encumbered means?
So encumbered means you obligate the funds and promise to spend it with a purchase order or in some other way, and then you spend it out before the actual deadline. So you're saying, we're committed to, like, if we had the tuition for those students that we would need to pay, we would encumber that before we get to September, maybe pay the bill in October, and then we clear it out of the grant and get reimbursed that way.
So whether we have this position or not, we're going forward with the same process, right? So whether we have this.
Yeah, we've got the grant.
Yeah, we've got the grant. So whether we have that position or not, we're still going to use the grant in that manner.
Yes, and if you're talking about the grant coordinator / recruiter position specifically, I will say, having run this program in special education, and having to coordinate those services with universities, and I only had to coordinate it with one. It is a heavy job. Because you are supporting the students within the district, like the graduate students who are working for you, who are going to school, you are supporting them across multiple places. So within the school system, and that's really how we retain people. We provide that support.
Thank you for that.
Thank you for your insights. I appreciate that.
It's my slide anyway, so I'll just jump in. So another piece of this grant really is supporting employee health and wellness, and just a little fun fact, I guess. Actually, it's a research-based fact. So Harvard did a meta-analysis where they looked at a bunch of studies that looked at what is the economic impact of employee wellness programs on return on investment. And so there is a 6-to-1 return on investment, and I'll probably defer to Kevin to stop me if I start making stuff up again. So for every $1 spent on employee wellness, there is a $6 savings. So like, for example, medical costs can fall about $3.27 for every $1 spent on a wellness program, and absenteeism and staff turnover costs fall about $2.73 for every $1 spent on employee wellness. So the two programs that we are doing through this grant to support employee health and wellness, we partnered with the school care team to provide teacher cafes, and they have a research-based program called the WRAP program, which is Wellness Recovery Action Plan. And it really is to help our teachers build up their capacity to manage their stress levels and avoid that burnout. It focuses on 5 key areas: hope, personal responsibility, education, self-advocacy, and support. We do have teachers currently in this program. They meet once a month in person and then once per week virtually. And it's almost like just a support group, but it's a structured support group. So they're working on activities outside of meeting to help build their own capacity to manage their stress.
How many people do we have in the program currently?
So currently we have about 20. It's completely voluntary.
Okay.
The hope is to increase that as we move on. So we have 20 now. We are going to run 3 2-day summer workshops in this program to help provide an opportunity for teachers to come in and learn these strategies, but in a 2-day summer workshop. And we'll have 3 of those totals over the summer. And then we will run the teacher cafes again next school year. And then we also, originally in the grant, and for those of you that have looked at the grant, you might see that we were going to purchase the Calm app, which is a meditation app for teachers or for people to use. After reviewing really the needs of the district and our teachers, I spoke with Mindy about possibly like changing that funding, because I didn't feel, I was concerned about the message we'd be sending to our teachers if we just said, here you go, here's an app. Good luck finding time to meditate, or if this is even a resource you would use. So because of the cost associated with that app, which was about $14,000, we have reallocated that into providing direct counseling services for teachers. So through Crosswinds Corporate Counseling, they get up to 5 counseling sessions at no cost to them, in addition to our current employee assistance program, with the option to extend services beyond 5 sessions. Any questions on the employee wellness program?
How do you get the sign up for the 2-day summer workshop?
So we have not put that out yet.
Okay.
It's just kind of aligning the different things, like we have the Do One Thing conference and the Back to School University, and when does school start and when is the first teacher day. So those kind of things, just lining those up, and then we'll have those.
Is there expectation that they'll go to that, or is that's completely voluntary?
That's completely voluntary. Yeah, this is just here is sort of a wellness retreat or an opportunity for you to learn some skills to manage your stress in a structured way. And I mean, this is corporations, maybe not school corporations. This might be a newer avenue for school corporations, but corporate America uses this stuff a lot.
So it's $86,000 total cost, but like, what if you put it out there and there's no raw material? Are you going to reallocate those funds again also?
Yeah, we would work with school care team to figure out and then reassess, do we need to move the funding from teacher cafes, so we don't really have a lot of buy-in for that, but we have a lot of people requesting counseling through Crosswinds, so.
Who leads these teacher cafes and the monthly meetings?
So that is the school care team. It's a service provider out of Fort Wayne. They provide mental health, but they also provide suicide prevention. So the Sources of Strength program that we have at the high schools, that comes from the school care team. So they are trained in this program and they come and work with our teachers and staff.
Are they counselors or what are the credentials? Are they?
Yes, yeah, either they're licensed social workers, so LCSWs, or they're, I don't even know what all the letters after their names mean, but it's called School Care Team. And I can link in the link to the stuff on this. If you have access to this slide deck, and I can link that information in on, so you can look at it.
I believe there's other school systems in our northern Indiana region that are using them.
Yes, and they do most often use them for Sources of Strength. There are maybe a handful that might use them for this like employee wellness program as well.
And are these meetings in person and virtually one-on-one? Are they group?
So it's a group, it's like a small group. So like, well, the 20, 25 people that we have signed up met 2 weeks ago down here in our PLC with the school care team RAP coordinator. And then they will meet for the next 3 weeks online for 30-minute check-ins, because they kind of get homework assignments. If their first word or their first skill focus was hope and how you build resilience and how you practice gratitude and things like that, they'll do those check-ins with them. And then on the 5th meeting, it's in person, and then the following 3 are online. And that was designed intentionally to support, because having the same issue with getting people to come in person for mentor-mentee meetings, people are exhausted, and even if it is for self-care or wellness and skill building, it's still hard to get people to take time to not be home in their pajamas, essentially. So having those options for the rest of the weeks to be online have helped. Any other questions? I'm not even going to try to advance the slide, Jake, so I'll just...
Okay, the final focus of the grant is the efforts to increase the number of our high school students enrolling into education programs. So at the beginning of this grant, there were several meetings with our local universities and partners, and Dr. Coulthard Higgs from St. Mary's stepped up and said, I would love to help you plan a 3-day introduction to teaching program for your high school students. So she coined it Passion, Practice, and Pathways, and this is currently happening. Within our Elkhart Area Career Center, we already have programming for students entering into the field of education, and her and I talked about that a lot. We have 71 students enrolled in the early childhood education program or the education professions. So within our conversation, we said, okay, the likelihood, since these students are so involved in that, of them going on to pursue education is probably pretty high. So why don't we expand our efforts into trying to connect with students who maybe have never thought about education, or who maybe have a teacher that may think, hey, that person would make a great teacher, that student would make a great teacher. So that has been our focus, to try to reach those kids. So what is the program? So day one is we are going to take a group of students to St. Mary's College. They are going to attend class with current St. Mary's students and their professors. They will take 2 classes. They will be able to tour the campus, have lunch there, listen to other presentations about going into the teaching profession. During their classes that they will attend, they will be preparing some lessons and learning some fun strategies and preparing some learning games. And so then on day 2, which will be the practice, those Elkhart High School students will go over to Woodland for the day, and they will essentially have a student teaching experience as a high school student. So they will play the games with the students, they will practice their strategies with the students. So Mr. Levan and I are currently putting together the schedule for that day. And then on day 3, after the high school students have had the opportunity to kind of have that experience with students, over at the ETI, Maggie is helping me put this together, we're going to have a career fair, like a career and education fair, where we will invite colleges and university representatives to come and then help students know, okay, so now what's the pathway? What are your next steps? So we are looking forward to that. It's right around the corner. In identifying students, I created a teacher video that I shared with Kerry Anderson, and he got this out to all of his teachers that kind of explained everything I'm explaining to you. And then created a student video, which I'll share with you in just a moment. And so once the teachers identified those students that they felt would be great candidates for this, we put together a spreadsheet, they put names on there. I went over then and met with that group of students, shared the video, told them about the program. And so far we have collected 21 permission slips. They're still coming in. And we are planning our trip on February the 28th to St. Mary's. And then on March the 10th, we will be over at Woodland for the follow-up day. So I did want to share the student video with you.
If I were to ask you to describe your favorite teacher, what words first come to mind? Smart, fun, caring, kind, inspiring. If I were to ask you what you If I were to ask you to describe your favorite teacher, what words first come to mind? Smart, fun, caring, kind, inspiring. If I were to ask you what you like most about your favorite teacher's class, would you say, I love all of the different hands-on activities for students. I love how engaging and fun the class is. I like that my teacher helps me. I just like that my teacher is funny and makes learning not even seem like learning. Have you ever considered or have you ever thought about pursuing a future career in teaching? You are watching this video today because one of your teachers, maybe even your favorite teacher, has turned in your name as a student who would make an inspiring future teacher. As part of a grant that Elkhart Community Schools recently received from the Indiana Department of Education, you are personally being invited to take part in a 3-day workshop called Passion, Practice, and Pathways, a 3-part introduction to teaching. The purpose of this workshop is to introduce you to the field of education, provide you with some hands-on experiences of what it is like to be a teacher, and finally, give you the opportunity to visit a college campus and experience what it is like to be a college student. St. Mary's College, Goshen College, and Elkhart Community Schools have joined forces to help inspire, motivate, and encourage high school students like you to pursue careers in the field of education. During this 3-day workshop, you will first visit St. Mary's College or Goshen College for an entire day. You will tour the campuses, meet current students who are taking classes in education, attend a college class along with current education students, learn how to create a fun activity focused on reading or math, and finally, take this activity back to an elementary or a secondary classroom to do with elementary or secondary students. Don't worry, you will not be alone. The college students and university professors will work right alongside you the entire time, including when you go back to visit the elementary or secondary students. We will all work together to create an amazing experience that just might ignite that spark and encourage you to become a future teacher. You will also get to talk to current education students about their experiences in college.
Hello, my name is Amanda Tracy and I'm currently a junior here at St. Mary's College studying elementary education with minors in malntervention and early childhood education. For as long as I can remember, I've always been interested in pursuing a career in education. My main reason for this comes from my older brother. He was diagnosed with autism at a young age, and I quickly learned that I wanted to pursue a career that enabled me to make a positive and lasting impact on the lives of all students, no matter what disability or behavior they may procure. The St. Mary's College Education Department allows me to do just that. The professors are truly incredible. Not only are they teaching us content-specific area lessons, they also provide us the opportunity to grow professionally through professional development and other resources. The highlight of my experience thus far has to be my fieldwork. Interacting with students on a daily basis, collaborating with clinical educators, teaching different lessons, and learning different curriculums and classroom management skills, I am quickly reminded of why I wanted to pursue a career in education in the first place, which is making a positive and lasting impact on the lives of all students. I am grateful for the St. Mary's College Education Department as it allows me to do just that.
Hello, my name is Kennedy Stewart. I am a freshman here at Goshen College studying elementary education with English language learners. So the reason I decided to become a teacher was because I never saw much diversity in the classrooms that I grew up in. It wasn't until my senior year that I found a teacher who was mixed, just like me, which is kind of insane. And I decided that I wanted to be a part of that change and go into teaching, even knowing what the field is now. I still want to be able to inspire kids such as I was inspired. One of the biggest reasons I decided to come to GC was because we get that hands-on experience and that opportunity, such as Teach Elkhart County for students, for teachers who are promoting diversity and living in color. And then also the CCYC, which is like our on-care child care center, which gives me like a chance to work with the kids as well as our kindergarten lab. So I think Goshen's a great choice if you want to go into elementary education or just ed in general.
Hi everyone, my name is Peyton. I am a senior in the education department here at St. Mary's. In terms of why I picked St. Mary's, why I became a teacher, actually one of the biggest reasons why I chose St. Mary's was because of the education department. So I was really drawn to the department here at St. Mary's due to the fact that I've had experience as early as my first year here on campus. I have had 4 field experiences ranging from 2nd grade all the way up to 5th grade. I have seen public school, Catholic school. I'm also in a Spanish immersion school currently, which is really helpful with my minor. And I have grown to be such an independent and strong-willed educator, and I owe that all to our education department.
The final part will include an event specifically hosted for future teachers, which will include local university and college representatives to share all about their programs and provide you with information for when you are ready to apply for college. I am so excited that your teacher has nominated you to take part in this event. We all look forward to working with you.
Okay, and I forgot to mention that Dr. Lisa, who I mentioned earlier from Goshen College that is helping us with the mentor-mentee program, she has come on board with us in the fall then to do this same 3-day introduction to teaching with a secondary focus. So we can repeat the same experience in the fall for students that will be interested in working with secondary students. All right, so the budget breakdown, the total cost of this program is just a little over $3,000. It's a pretty small budget as compared to other items within the grant. We're pretty confident that in the future that we will be able to do this again by looking at other funding sources, perhaps through our title funds or other areas. So I have a link to the full grant that have all of the pieces, and that concludes the presentation.
Is there any additional questions or discussion from the board? Is there any questions or comments from the audience? Okay, thank you, Mindy.
Thank you.
Mr. Thorne, you are up next.
Ironically, the first item in terms of policy revisions is a proposed revision to the compensation plan for employees in miscellaneous positions. We will be seeking your approval to add a grant-funded position, which you've heard a fair amount about over the last 45 minutes to an hour. As you all know, colleges and universities are granting a limited number of new teacher candidates, and the marketplace for teachers is highly competitive. This position, funded by the Attract, Retain, and Care grant, will oversee both the financial reporting aspects of the grant and, more importantly, focus on these innovative strategies to attract candidates to join the teaching staff in this district. Successful candidate for this position will be charged with developing strong relationships with colleges and university education departments, so students graduating from those institutions possess a solid understanding of the opportunities available here in Elkhart. In addition, the individual holding this position will also be charged with the responsibility to identify and nurture within our support staff and community individuals who have an opportunity, have demonstrated a passion for working with our students that might need additional support in the process of attaining the necessary credentials to teach our schools.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
If you are approving it, you're not going to need to wait a second. Just a reminder.
Is there a motion to waive second reading?
I'll second.
You making the motion to, is there a second to
Oh, I'm
waive?
sorry, to waive second.
Is there a second to waive second reading?
So was mine the first?
You were the motion to accept.
Okay. all right.
Yeah,
Second.
So I believe you've got a motion to approve, you got a motion, a second, you had a motion to amend to waive second reading. Is that, did I hear it
yes.
correctly? So would you have first a vote on the motion to amend?
Okay, all in favor to amend?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
And then a motion on the approval of the policy.
Is there a motion to approve the policy?
I think you've already had the
Yeah.
motion,
Oh.
so it's a vote.
Oh, okay,
I'm sorry.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Second item would be board policy 5460, which are proposed revisions to the graduation requirements. This is very much a follow-up to your last regular board meeting where members of the administration presented some of the changes that are required by the state. I should note, however, that we continue to receive information from the state specifically as to how the graduation requirements for students receiving special education services are likely to change over the next 2 weeks. So you are likely to see some additional changes to the policy before we grant you for final approval. If we get those in a timely fashion, we will send those to you as quickly as possible. So at this point in time, we're not asking you to take any further action. We wanted to bring the initial draft to you. And as soon as we have additional guidance from the State Department of Education, we will communicate those to you. But if there are questions regarding the proposed changes this evening, we have 2 experts sitting in the back of the room who would be happy to answer any of those questions, as well as maybe Tony England can provide some guidance on how what's happening with special education should be a questions related to that.
Is there any questions or comments from the board? Any questions or comments from the audience? Okay.
The next item would be proposed revisions to 2 administrative regulations, which are the current waiver forms that are utilized along with the new graduation requirements. Bringing this to you again for initial review by the board, but anticipate there too there may be some minor modifications to that form. Our proposal would be to take 2 forms and merge them into 1 form. Are there any questions related to the administrative regulations? I'd be happy to answer those at this time.
Any discussion from the board? Any questions or comments from the audience? Okay.
Finally, we have an agreement with our maintenance employees, and they have made a request to us to modify the vacation carrier provisions in their handbook. Currently, their handbook provides that they can only carry over accrued vacation from 1 year to the next for 120 days. And they have requested that we change that proposed revision so that we allow to carry over for 6 months. And we're seeking approval of that. And I would suggest that we might want to waive second reading as to that particular policy as well.
Which one needs to go first?
Motion to.
I think you can do both I think you can do both of them in the form of motion.
Motion with second reading.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I have a discussion. So, currently, they have 120 days to use,
They have 120 days to use carryover vacation from the prior year.
and we were extending it out 6 months.
Yes. So rather than have 120 days, which was used to exist within the custodian's contract, the custodians asked for that change about 3-4 years ago. And the maintenance folks are just catching up with what the custodians asked for a couple of years back.
Got it. Okay. There's nothing further.
Okay. Is there any questions or comments from the audience? Doug, did you skip something or did you combine?
I combined
Okay.
the 2 administrative regulations into one.
Because it's gonna move into one thing.
Because they won't merge into one.
Okay.
Good catch.
Thank you. Oh, good grief. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you very
Motion
much.
passes. Last on the agenda, Dr. Tallheimer.
When I came to Elkhart Schools 4 years ago, I viewed it as a calling and I intended for me to work here until my retirement. However, as we all know, my 4 years here have been like no others. The challenges, the environment around public schools, COVID, and working to heal a district that needed attention paid to individual and institutional health have placed a lot of demands on me and my family. We spent a lot of time in our household discussing this over the holidays, and there are issues of personal and family wellness that had to be taken into account. It is for these reasons that I'm asking the Board of School Trustees to consider my resignation as Superintendent of Schools effective June 30th. The main factor that has sustained me in this work and makes the prospect of leaving so difficult is the people. Students, parents, staff, building administrators, community partners, stakeholders, and the district leadership have all made my time here incredibly meaningful and a time I will certainly treasure. Visits from Dr. Jenner and the IDOE, an invitation to serve on the Governor's Workforce Cabinet, receiving competitive grants to support student programs and teacher retention, and the Excellence in Education Award in the fall all show that our work is doing the right things. We took care of each other through the pandemic. We merged back to one Elkhart High School featuring our unique schools of study, and we've continued to build out student pathways, most recently with initiatives to increase opportunities in STEM, computer science, and advanced manufacturing. Because of my faith in the people at all levels here, because we have a solid plan for teaching and learning in place that can carry forward, and because of the feasibility process that we're now engaged in to set future direction, I feel like this is the time for me to move on to whatever lies before me. Thank you to the Board of School Trustees for your trust in my shepherding of the district. Thank you to the families and the community for trusting my leadership, even when there were differing viewpoints and needs to balance. Thank you most of all to the hardworking and dedicated staff who appreciated and respected the steady hand I tried to demonstrate for your benefit. While I don't have the next part of my professional journey charted yet, my primary goal is to help the district through the transition of the next 4.5 months. I will actively promote and contribute to that feasibility process. We will continue our work on academics, anti-bullying, and supporting all students. I will assist with the transition to a new superintendent in any way I'm asked. As many of you know, because I'm a worker, I will sprint across the finish line. I have been dedicated to Elkhart Schools since my arrival and will continue to work my hardest and give my best until my final day in June. Thank you.
Is there a motion to accept the resignation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Hold on. I'm getting to that. Just hold on.
Sorry.
All in favor? Or is there any discussion?
Discussion, yeah.
Okay. I just want to make a statement on behalf of the board. We have a lot of respect for you, Dr. Tallheimer, and we appreciate all of the hard work you dedicated to Elkhart Community Schools. And we wish you nothing but the best on the next leg of your journey. We really do look forward to working with you throughout the next 4 months to the end of the school year. We really feel like we can still get a lot of good work done with some of the initiatives we started. And just to the community, we just want to share that we'll be starting the search process probably this week. We'll make sure that it's thorough and transparent. We are confident that we will find somebody with the skills that will be well positioned to serve the needs of Elkhart Community Schools and continue on our journey to a brighter future. So thank you again, Dr. Tallheimer. Is there any comments from the audience?
I just want to say, and I wrote it down because I have to read. Thank you for your dedication and service to the students and system of Elkhart Community Schools. You stepped into an infuriated hornet's nest left in the abrupt wake of our former superintendent, and unfortunately, that never seemed to stop swarming during your time here years later. You entered our community with great kindness and a willingness to hear from everyone, literally everyone. Whether the issue is large or small, applicable to the masses, or simply one individual, and everything in between. There are not many superintendents of a district with 12,000 plus students who encourage the public to email them with their questions and answer them usually within 48 hours. Your patience and flexibility are appreciated. You are not a politician, which, trust me, is a huge compliment. You're real. Someone recently said to me, nice guys don't last long, and that's so true. It's very unfortunate. You have always seemed more interested in trying to figure out the best path for our students while promoting the well-rounded student experience, not just the singular viewpoint of what is typically most popular. While I was not on board with every initiative you have had, I was always on board with where I feel your heart lies, with our children. Thank you for choosing to come to Elkhart and recognizing the potential we have. Our plan was for our kids to transfer to Edwardsburg, and we did that with our son. He attended 7th and 8th grade there. Our daughter was to transfer the following year. After much family discussion, we allowed our son to come back to EHS and keep our daughter in Elkhart because we saw the direction you, Mr. Anderson, and others involved were taking the school and the district. I am not excited about yet another disruption and change to both my kids' school lives, along with both of our work lives. I hope people have told you along the way how amazing you are. I hope you haven't only heard the negative noise. Hopefully at some point, those of us who remain can figure out how to collaboratively get on the same page, look forward to seek solutions to our issues instead of consistently projecting them onto others, and harness their potential so we stop allowing it to travel down the road.
Is there any other comments from the audience? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Dora, do we have any? Jeff?
Should put me on the clock. Jeff Miller, employee, parent, resident, alumni. Thank you. I want to say thank you for your service. Leadership is difficult. You all know that. You're front line, you get the slings and arrows of everybody. It's no different with any leadership position. I'm smart enough to not be in a direct leadership position. I get to stand behind my boss while I say stuff and say, well, he's my boss, take it up with him. Feasibility study, one of our colleagues brought up something that was really poignant to me, and I hope that in our search and in our future direction, we keep in mind that it took somebody to come to Elkhart and point this out to me. He hasn't been here very long, only a couple of years, but one of the comments he made in the feasibility study was, you know, what does Elkhart do well? What do we hang our hat on? Concord has music. Middlebury has academics. Penn has athletics. Like, what's our thing? We don't have a thing because we try to do everything. So, like, if I'm building a football program from a team that has been absolutely rancid year after year, terrible, I can't just automatically say we're going to be great at everything next year. This next season, instead of being bad at everything, we're going to be great at everything. I got to pick something to hang our hat on. We're going to build an outstanding defense. We're going to stop the run in year one. Nobody's going to run the football on us. Then in year two, they won't be able to pass on us either. Then in year three, our special teams are going to kick their butt. Then in year four, our offense is going to catch up. By that time, we're really good at everything. So my plea for our direction is let's figure out who we are. Stop. We don't need to be, and I'm not saying you do this, but I'm tired of everybody saying we need to do this because Middlebury does it, or do this because Penn does. That's not who we are. Let's be who we are. Let's be Elkhart. Let's figure out what our thing is, and let's do it really, really well. And everything else is going to come on board. Thank you.
Michelle?
Good evening, members of the board. I've come to you tonight to, one, say goodbye. And I'm sorry that your time here was painful through all of the trials and tribulations of the last few years of COVID. But I mainly came here to speak to this board. And the reason I came here, it's kind of funny that Jeff kind of preempted me a little bit. Elkhart's thing is that we lose money. So I did a little math for you, because I am not a graduate of Elkhart Community Schools. I do have 2 children that matriculated through these doors. And my 3rd child, I moved to Middlebury. And the reason I moved here to Middlebury was academics and the lack thereof, to support a child that's in the 5% of this education system, the top 5%. So I did a little math for you. You would receive $10,000 annually for my child. She left along with 2,500 other children that have chosen to go to other school systems because their parents have the ability to do it. So if 2,500 students have left this school system, so instead of being a 12 plus, we're down to like 11,000 students, 2,500 times 10,000 times 6 years. That's $150 million. You want to know what Elkhart's good at? Losing money. Do you want to know why Elkhart parents leave? I'm not going to send you some flyer. I'm not going to respond to some idiotic email, because I think that you are actually intelligent people. I think you actually hear from parents, and I think you actually come to the schools. You don't support your teachers. You don't support your teachers. I looked up today and I got so frustrated that I stopped at one statistic, because I'm a statistics-based girl, okay? If my child is in the 95th percentile of growth on one test, that's important. So I went to look at what the percentage was. 5,139 students in this community took the iLearn test in the spring of 2022 from 3rd grade to 8th grade. 21% of them passed it. Stop worrying about the kids who are already here. The children who don't get an education are the children at the elementary level. You want to know why they don't continue here? It's because they're not getting it early enough. So what is Elkhart good at? Losing money. It's your job, and it's a fiduciary duty of this board, to find a superintendent that will give us a direction. The last 2, and unfortunately for Dr. Tallheimer, he just went along with a plan that he got stuck with. You now have to rewrite a plan, and you have to lead, and you have to make choices.
Michelle, your time is up. Thank you for your comments.
Excellent. And the next time, maybe you could say the word ask instead of asked.
Thank you so much for your comments. Is there any comments from the board?
Yeah, coming up in March, I think it's March 18th, the Air Force ROTC is having their military ball. And one of the things that would be good, if people feel so moved, is that to be able to sponsor some of the cadets and possibly their guests to be able to attend that, if anybody feels the need that they could do that. Also, on the good news side, I think this occurred at the end of January. It was an article in the Wall Street Journal. And we got to take a win when we can get one, but it come up with Elkhart was number 3 place to live in the United States. And I think most people don't feel that way, but this is a great community. And when it makes the Wall Street Journal, we weren't number 1, but hell, number 3 is a good place to be. So we need to remember that as we move forward here. Okay?
How much is the sponsor?
Huh?
How much is the sponsor?
As much as you want to contribute.
And let's get.
Yeah.
Is there any other comments from the board?